Hello friends, today I am going to show you how to create a ASP.NET MVC web application project using Visual Studio 2022. I'll be using .NET 7 to do this. So if you are new to Visual Studio or the .NET world, then this video will be very useful to you. I'll show you step by step how to do it. It is a beginner's tutorial, so it is very basic and simple. So to do this, but I know a lot of people they are new to this and they may feel lost in the .NET world. So it will be good to understand how to do this thing. Now, with respect to .NET 7, if you want to know how to download and install it, I have created a tutorial on this, so I'll provide the link in the description below. So go ahead and watch that video. Similarly, if you want to know how to download Visual Studio 2022, so there is also a video for that, so you can follow the link that is in the description. So once you have done these two things, that is, you have installed Visual Studio 2022 and you have .NET 7 installed in your system, then come back and open Visual Studio 2022. So the interface will look something similar to this, what you see in the screen. Now here you will find some options. So we are interested in this last option because I want to create a new project. So click on this, create a new project. So now in this screen, you will see a list of templates that are provided by default by Visual Studio. Depending on what type of components you have selected, you may see different things here. Okay, so for example, I have the Microsoft Azure libraries installed, so I see Azure related templates as well. Okay, so now once you come here, so don't worry, I mean by default you will have ASP.NET MVC template, so nothing to do additional here. So come here and search for ASP.NET. So ASP.NET. So here you will find ASP.NET related templates. So I am interested in model view and controller, which is MVC. So this one. So select this and then click on this next button. So here it will ask you to give a project name. So my project will be based on animals. So I am just giving the name animals here, and you can give any name you wish. Okay, and then select a location. My default location is this, so you can change the location to something else. Now you can see the project will be created in the following way, right? C demo, and then inside that my project will be created, which is animals. Okay, so once you have this, click on the next button. Here you can see .NET 7 is selected, but you can select other frameworks also. Since my system already has 3.1 and 5.0, it is coming up here. Okay, but note that this is out of support now, so Microsoft is not supporting it, but you can still find these libraries available online in Microsoft's website. You can still download it, but any issues with it, Microsoft will not be supporting this. Whereas .NET 6.0 and 7.0 support is available. Okay, 6.0 is long-term support, and .NET 7.0 is also like standard term support. Okay, so it will be there in the market for some time. So since I want to show this using .NET 7.0, so I'll select this. Authentication type, you can leave it as it is, none, and this also you can leave it all these things as it is. Now click on create. Now you can see that it has created a project called as animals, and by default it has created all these different folders and these files within this project. So this is called as the project, okay, which is the animals. It is within a solution. Okay, the solution can have multiple projects. So this is one of the projects which is created by default. So I can create another project, like I can right click, I can then add, and I can create a new project. So let's do this. So let's add one more project to it. So let's call it a class library project. So because this will only contain some class files. Okay, so let's add it, and let's call it as library. Okay, and next, again .NET 7.0. So here again, different projects within the same solution can be based on different versions. So I can use .NET 6 as well, or .NET 7. Since it is a class library project, it can also use .NET standard libraries, okay, framework. So here I am selecting again .NET 7.0. It is a good practice to keep everything based on the same version. Okay, it will be easier to manage and maintain. Now it is creating a project called as library. So now you can see I have two projects. Like this, I can add multiple projects within the same solution. So this is the solution and these are the projects. Remember that when you keep on adding different projects to a solution, it will take more and more time to compile the project, because the more things are there within a project or within a solution, the more time it will take to compile. Okay. However, since we are not doing much here, so it is okay for this demo. You can see this is a web application project. That's why it is this. You can see this icon. So there is a difference in the icon here. The icon, there is a globe symbol here because it is a web application project. For a class library project here, let's close this. So for the class library project here, you can see this has a different icon. Okay, so like this, you can see there are Microsoft uses different icons for different projects. Now when I clicked here, if you double click here, you see this settings here, right? These are project settings which you can edit. So this is the settings for this project, library project. Similarly, if you double click this animals project or animals name here, you can see the default ones here. If you are not seeing .NET 6.0 here, then you can edit it, okay, and make it like 7.0. Okay, then there are some settings like nullable and these things which are here. So by default, nullable will be enabled. You can disable it here as well for your basically whatever variables you declare. So by default it will be nullable. Okay, that is what this means. Now we are done with the project settings, and we have added a new project as well. So let's go through some other things. So here on top you can see there is dependencies, there is connected services, there is dependencies. You can see there is frameworks here, which is by default Microsoft will use these libraries within your project. So this has been added. So like this ASP.NET Core Web App library is also added here. Now, if you want to add some more packages, for example, if you want to use entity framework, then you can add that as well. When you do that, a new thing will come up here called as package, and within the package you will find those libraries. Okay, so in order to do that, right click and manage NuGet packages. So this is called as NuGet packages, and through this you can easily install these additional libraries. So go to browse, and once the screen refreshes, you can see there are a lot of this kind of packages available. So let's say I want to use entity framework SQL Server. Okay, just as an example, let's say I want this. So click on this and install. Okay, so this is the entity framework core, which will you can use to connect to a database, a SQL Server database. So you will get this kind of a pop-up here, which is a license acceptance. Just click on I accept, and then it will install this, right? So now you can see a packages have come up, and now if I go inside the package, I can see there are some libraries there, right? So you can see 7.0 entity framework core version, that is the version of this framework, and then there are different things within that. Okay, and you can see the corresponding libraries. So that is one thing, and then there are properties where you will find the settings, which is launch settings, a JSON file editable. So you can edit this as JSON file, and when you run the application, so these are the settings which will follow. Okay, so you can disable, for example, anonymous authentication and enable Windows authentication. Okay, so every time you run the application, it will a pop-up will open up. It will ask you to enter the Windows credential. Okay, so like this, there are different files here. So then you have www where you can see CSS files, JavaScript files, or other Bootstrap files. Yeah, so you can add new styles or JavaScript files here. There is an icon. By default, icon is provided here for your application or for your project. Yeah, MVC project. You can change this icon as well if you want. It should be in the .ico extension so that it can understand that this is your application icon. Similarly, there is an app level setting. So app settings.json. So here you can manage your loggings information. You can add new keys. You can add your connection strings like this. You can maintain different settings here for the application. Okay. Then you can see this program.cs file, which is your entry point. Basically, when you run the application, the program.cs is your entry point. .NET does a lot of things here before it redirects your request to a specified resource, the resource that is requested for in the URL. Before it redirects to that resource, it will do certain things. Okay, so these are the things which it will do. Now, since this is a basic tutorial, I will not go deep into this, but this is something called as middleware injection. Okay, so things which are done here or set here are used when you run the application. You can also access these resources within your controllers. Okay, you can also do that. However, the important thing here is this. For the purpose of this tutorial, everything is important here, but for the purpose of this tutorial, you need to understand this controller route. So you can see it will go by default to home and to this action method. So this is the controller name, which is basically a class. Yeah, a class is a structure, a blueprint basically. Okay, so based on the class, you create different objects. Yeah, so this is the controller, home controller. Okay, which is basically a home class. Okay, a controller class, and within that you have different methods. Since it is within the controller, it is called as action methods. In a normal class, it will be called as methods, but since it is within the controller, it will be called as action method. So index is one such action method. If you want to pass any parameter value, then this is the one, but this is nullable. It will also, if you don't pass anything, that is also fine. Okay, it is optional basically. Okay, so that is the structure, that is the pattern which you need to follow when you want to call a specific action method. Okay, so this is the pattern which needs to be followed here. All right, now let's go to controllers, models, and views. Since this is a ASP.NET MVC application, you will find this structure here, right? Controller, models, views. So what are these? So controllers, as the name suggests, it controls. Okay, so it controls the entire behavior of how the application should work. So whenever a resource is requested, a resource means when you type the application name in the URL, right, in the browser, slash, you follow this pattern. Yeah, when you type this, so the resource here is home index action method. So that is the resource you are requesting. Yeah, so when you are typing it, so the control will be, so the control will be directed towards the controller. Okay, so this control means your request will be directed towards this controller. Okay, so for example, here if you go inside home controller, you can see there is an index action method. So if I put a breakpoint here, so you will see that the when I run this application, it will hit this breakpoint first. If I put a breakpoint here or here, it will not hit these breakpoints, but it will hit the index method breakpoint. So that is what will be called, because the reason is when the program class is executed, here we have maintained, here we have written that home index should be called first. Okay, that is the default behavior, right? So that is where it will come. Now let's go to the structure of this a bit. So by default, you can see there are certain things added here, some more action methods like privacy, error, then logger. Okay, so if you want to do any logging, so you can use this logger method. So like this. Now this is a constructor. Okay, as I said, this is a class. Basically controller is basically a class. That's why it is written here, right? Public class home controller, name is home controller, so that the ASP.NET engine understands that this is a controller class, not a ordinary class. Yeah, and it inherits from the base controller class. Base controller class is provided by .NET framework. Yeah, so the .NET core, basically the .NET core engine, that contains a controller class which is defined inside this library. Yeah, so this namespace. So if you go here, let's say go to definition, so it will navigate to the definition, and you can see this is defined inside a inside this assembly, right? So this assembly lives here in this .NET DLL file. So this is a DLL file, which, so obviously when you compile a class library, it will be the output is a DLL file. Okay, so this DLL file is stored here in this location, C program files .NET so and so. Yeah, so this is where it is stored, and inside this DLL file you will have this namespace. Okay, and inside this namespace you will have a class which is called as a controller class. Now this is an abstract class. Okay, which means you cannot instantiate this class. Means you cannot just say that abc equal to new controller, because this is abstract class. So you cannot do it, but it is public, which means you can access this class. So you can use this class as a base class, which .NET does here. So this is called as a base class, right? And this is a child class. So the child class is inheriting from a base class. So this is called as inheritance principle. Yeah, so one of the object oriented concepts, so where you can inherit from a base class or a parent class. Yeah, we also call it as a parent class. So this controller is a base class or a parent class. This is a child class, you are inheriting from it. So what is the advantage of doing this? So now you will be able to use the methods which are defined in the base class, right? So that is what you do here. So since you are doing this, so this is all, so .NET understands that this is a controller, and then you have all these things available. Okay, now IXN result. Now this is again a return type, and it is since if it is I, means you know that there is an interface. Okay, whenever there is I here, and you also follow the same convention. If you are defining your own interface, use I. Yeah, I, and then you can name something. But so this is the interface. Basically what we are saying is that the return type should follow this interface. Okay, so whatever you are returning, that should follow this interface. So so that as an interface, in an interface, then again there are you can define number of things within an interface. So it will have again different properties, methods, all those things. But this particular method should have a IXN result interface. Again, there are different varieties of return types which a action method can have. So IXN result is one of those. Okay, you can also for example return a I file result. So like this you can have different different return types for action methods. Then now in the controller, so what it does, once a control comes here, so you can return a view, which is basically you are just so view is basically a HTML file when it is rendered in the browser, and it can contain JavaScript classes, it can contain CSS, it can contain plain HTML. So in the view you display things. Yeah, so you display data, you can display static data. For example, this particular view, right? So it is inside the home, and you can see a folder here. So you can also see a home folder. So whatever is the controller name, you will find a corresponding name inside the view. When you create a controller, that is how it will create .NET Visual Studio will create the things for you. Okay, so whatever controller you add a view, within the views you will have a same folder, and whatever action methods you have, you will have corresponding CHTML files. Since it is C#, so CHTML. If you are using VB, As your language, it will be VB.html. Okay, these are static files. Right now you can make it dynamic as well, but right now it is static, so you can see different things default, something they have written, right? So welcome, learn about, so and so. Similarly, there is a privacy access methods and a corresponding privacy view. Okay, so whatever is action method here, it should have a corresponding view, right? So that is the fundamental of this. So you have a action method, you should have a corresponding view index. You have a action method inside called as privacy, then you should have a corresponding view privacy. Otherwise, if you don't have, you cannot do this return view. Okay, so when you say return view, it will look for that view name within this home folder inside views. So if you don't have home, it will throw an error. If you don't have these HTML files, it will throw an error, right? So that is how this works. Now what we can do is, so this is the controller and the view. Now there is one more thing, right? The models. Now what is a model? Now model is basically a set of class, okay, which you can create inside models, or you can create number of class within a models folder and then use those within your controller. Okay, so basically in model you define what kind of objects you want to interact with. Okay, so suppose I want a student object, or I want a let's say an animal object, or I want a color object. Like this, I want different objects, right? You create those classes inside the model. Model holds the data for you. Okay, so when you interact with a full database, right? In a database, if you're bringing something from a database or from an API, you are getting some data, right? You want to keep the data in somewhere, so that data has to be stored in an object, right? So the class for those corresponding objects needs to be defined within models. Yeah, so you can create different model classes here, and then you create objects for those classes and use those objects to store that data. And then why to store the data? Because you want to use those data, right? So first you need to store it somewhere. So store it in an object and then pass it to a view. Okay, so if you want to pass data to a view, then the best way is to create an object, store the data in the object, and then pass that object to the view within this parameter. So you can see this within this brackets, we can write that object name. Okay, how to do this I will show you with an example, but this is the funda of it. So you can also pass data through other ways. Okay, for example, you can use viewbacks, you can pass data, but the ideal way is always to create a custom model class, create an object, and then pass whatever data comes into that, you then pass it to view. Now, another advantage of this is that now this is a simple example, right? Now suppose you are getting a data from a database. Yeah, you're getting it from SQL Server or Oracle or some MySQL, some database is there. You want to get the data. Then when you get the data, it will be in different structure. Yeah, so data may be in a different structure. Your application may be in a may have a different structure. Okay, now you need to store that data in a standard objects so that your views can render it, right? Now your views understands only the model classes which you define here. Okay, it doesn't understand a third-party API structure or a database which you don't control, right? It doesn't understand that structure. So let's say you are retrieving some student information. Okay, so the student information that is coming from the database may have name as student name or age as student is, but you in your view you are writing it as just name or just age. Yeah, so that is the convention you are using in your view. So what you can do is in the model you can define like name, age, all those things, and then you can have a mapping class which will map your database into your model. Yeah, whatever is written by the database, so it will return a default object, right? So you can map those to your model, and then you can display it. So when you do this kind of mapping, so that model is known as view model. Okay, because it is used by a view. Okay, when you don't need this kind of mapping and you just want to use directly the model classes, then that is called as a normal model. Okay, so you can name it like that. So for example, here it is a view model, because this will be directly used in your view. But if you don't want to use that if you don't want to do mapping, or if you don't want to use a model in your view, then you can use a normal, you can say error model instead of error view model. Okay, so like this, different naming conventions you can use. But ultimately, end of the day, a view model and a normal model is a class. Okay, so like you can see here, public class, error view model. So it is, end of the day, it is a class. Okay, so that is how your controller models and views work. What we can do is we can create a simple model and then add it to this view here. Okay, before we do that, just I want to touch upon this library project. So certain times you need to keep, for example, as I said, when we are getting data from some other database, right? So it may be in an unstandard way. So it's not, it may not be following the same convention that you are following. So the structure that you get may be in a different format. Okay, something may be integer, something may be string, whereas in your model, the data types could be different, names could be different. So you can do a mapping. Yeah, so this kind of mapping, or if you want to write logic for this mapping, so it is better to do this in a library class. Yeah, so because this is a common thing which you'll use throughout. So either a library, or you can say utility. Some people also use like utility classes, right? So you can rename it as utility. So utility classes, for example, here you can say I want to have a let's say a mapping. Yeah, or a mapper. Yeah, my mapper. So when you say this my mapper, so it will so I can use this my mapper class here, and I can write some logic here so that I can use this utility to do all the mapping for me, right? Or you can add, for example, you want to do some complex calculations. Yeah, so you can add a library class to do those complex calculations rather than the web application, so that you can separate the things. So another advantage is that, suppose tomorrow you are working on another project. Yeah, so and then you want to use this calculation in your project, so you can just import this library project to the other project and use it as it is. So no need to again write it down. Yeah, write all the logic. No need to do all those things. Just, so reusability point of view, it is very good. Yeah, it keeps the data separate. It is reusable. So we are following all the object-oriented principles. So in order to do that, you can do that, do this way, right? So also, a complex project or a enterprise level projects may have different other things, right? For example, it may have a so it may have a database project, so you can add a database project. So for repository classes, you need to have a different project. Okay, so like this, always create different projects wherever possible to keep the things separate. Okay, right, so let's go back to our model, add it, click on right click and add, and here say new item and select class and name this class as, let's say, animal. Yeah, so we are creating a animal model here, and id, so string id get set, and then okay, name is one more, so it is giving me auto suggestions. So you just hit the tab 2 times and that will be selected, right? Whatever suggestion is coming up. So I just hit the tab on my screen. Now see, this is non-nullable property. Okay, so it should be non-nullable. So if you want to make it nullable, just add this question mark and it will become nullable. So now you can see the error is gone, right? So it can contain, so name can contain null, but ID I'm saying it should be nullable. So every animal object should have a ID. So ID and name, right? So we have given two properties. We have defined two properties. Now let's say define one more property, public. Okay, before we go there, let's define the enum here. Okay, so enum animal type, domestic, wild, or let's say both. Yeah. Okay, now the enum is defined, so we need to make it public enum, and then here public so it is a, so you need to define the animal type enum, and we will say a type or animal type get set. Yeah, animal type is also okay. So the variable name is also animal type. Okay, and get set. So so we have three properties here: ID, name, animal type. Let's go back to our controller here and define private animal. So this is our animal model. Yeah. And I'm defining a variable here, animal, called an animal. I've initialized this variable inside the constructor. So new animal, so bracket. So this will initialize this object. Okay. So now the animal object is available to us once it is initialized. So in the index method, what you do is say animal dot, and you should be able to see the public properties here. So name is home, sorry, name is let's say animal dot name, animal dot animal type equal to animal type dot domestic. Yeah. So animal type is domestic. Animal name is chili. Okay. And then what you need to do is you need to pass this object here. Okay, in the view. All right. So once you pass this, so then it will call this view here and index.html. So here let's remove this. Here let's write the type of animal is. So the convention is use a @ symbol, and if you want to access the model that is being passed to the view, then use this @model. Okay. Now dot. Now what is the property you want to access here? So the property names you will get here, right? So this is the property we have defined. So animal dot name. So come back here, say name. Right. Now next, we want to show the, sorry, it is not name, but it is type, because we have written here the type of animal is, right? So type of animal is model dot type. So if I want to know the name of the animal, let's copy this, paste it, and then update it. So the name of animal is model dot name. Okay. So well, you can also have other things in the model. So but for example purpose, I'm only showing these two properties. But let's say you want to say what is the kind of animal. Okay, it is a cat or it's dog or something, right? So you can also add that. So different things you can add. What is the color of the animal? What are the features? Yeah. So these things you can add, those properties you can add, then you can access it here. So however, for this example, I think this is enough to make you understand. Well, so I think we're ready. So what we need to do now is build it and run it. Okay, so to build it, you can use the keys Control, Shift, and B. Okay, B for ball. So use those three keys, it will build. Okay, so that is the default shortcut key for that Visual Studio understands. All right. So if you, yeah, so let's run it now. Let's click this. So when you run it, it will obviously build and then run. So there is no, so it's just for the example purpose I showed you, you can also build it ahead of time. So when you run it, it will be quicker. Yeah, so it will not try to build because it is already built. So as I said earlier, the control, you can see the control so came here, right? So directly to the index, because that is the pattern which we have provided. Now it came here. So let's remove this breakpoints and then click on this continue, so that it can continue. Okay, now you can see that there is an error here. The type of animal is model.type because I did a mistake. We need to go back and correct this mistake. Here it is not type but animal type. Okay, let's see if it is able to understand this or not. No, it is able to understand, right? So now the code is correct, so everything is fine. The animal, the type of animal is domestic, the name of animal is Jilly. Now it doesn't look good because it is all in one line. So what we can do is we can add a break. Yeah, so break, so refresh, it will break the line, which means this line will come to the second position. Okay, so it is, we need to do a hot reload. Yeah, so now you can see the type of animal is domestic, the name of animal is Jilly. Very simple. The purpose of all this was to show you how the controller can retrieve data from model and then send it to view and then display it here, right? So you can see that that is happening as per our expectation. So that's it for this tutorial. Hope you find it useful. Let me know through your comments and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. All right, have a good day. Thank you.